Weather forecasting is now a multi-billion-pound global industry, with British companies investing heavily in meteorological information to make their businesses weatherproof.
If we didn't get the weather forecast predicted right very, very quickly, you could have empty shelves and very disappointed customers.
And one of the world leaders is the UK's very own Met Office.
Weather forecasts really are essential to the running of the UK.
Now, for the first time in their 160-year history, they're opening their doors to reveal that there's so much more to the Met Office than giving us our daily forecast.
There is nothing that the weather really doesn't touch in everything that we do, because the weather is awesome.
This time, a weather bomb threatens to detonate.
People are thinking it's an actual bomb.
Whilst the Met Office tried to reassure a concerned public.
I'm a very worried lady about the wind.
And the meteorologists have an £80,000 gamble.
You're never too sure of actually what's going to happen.
It's mid-December 2014. A powerful storm front is rolling towards the UK. And at its state-of-the-art HQ in Exeter, the full might of the Met Office is being mobilised. Staffed around the clock 365 days a year, it's home to 1,500 of Britain's brightest brains, working 20 specialist desks. But at 9 a.m. each morning, everything stops for the chief forecaster's briefing. And today, it looks like the weather's going to turn nasty.
Morning, everyone. Lots and lots of weather this week.
An explosive weather system is sweeping past Scotland, and its shockwaves are set to lash the country.
Until now, the focus has been primarily on snow and ice problems, but I suspect the main thing we need to be talking about is wind. It's going to be a very windy week overall.
When I wake up in the morning and I see something about a severe weather warning, you know it's going to be a busy day, a really busy day.
This is an exceptionally strong thermal gradient with the cold air coming out of Canada.
It makes it quite good fun, actually, in a warped sense.
We've already got, at this stage, we've got 70-mile-an-hour gusts across the far north of Scotland, the Northern Isles, also accompanied by some very stormy conditions with very large waves.
It's not just the meteorologists who are on alert.
Come on then, what have we got, guys? What have we got? I'll take that.
News of the incoming storm is already hitting the headlines. It's the job of the press and social media desk to make sure the public get an accurate account of the incoming weather. And the national press has latched on to the weather system's American name.
Oh, weather bomb. Usually people are frightened as if, and for some reason thinking it's an actual bomb.
So we have a tweet which has just come in, wondering what a weather bomb is. Well, Met Office have written a very handy blog explaining this weather event.
Weather bomb is an American term to what I used to call, when I first started forecasting, explosive development, also known as explosive cyclogenesis. And what it is a really, really rapidly developing area of low pressure. So it has a lot of potential to bring damaging winds, heavy rain, whip up the seas, so bring big waves as well.
The effects of the weather bomb are beginning to be felt across the northern coast of the UK. Whilst in Exeter, meteorologists are transforming complex weather data into hundreds of bespoke forecasts for all kinds of customers. Because weather is a billion-pound global industry, and the Met Office is consistently ranked among the world's top 2 forecasters, with a client list including some of Britain's biggest businesses.
The weather forecast market is extremely competitive, and it's all about being the most accurate provider and tailoring that information for the industry you're talking about.
From energy suppliers to major retailers to government agencies, some of the world's best-known organisations pay forecasters a small fortune for weather intelligence to keep them one step ahead of the elements.
Good morning, Met Office. Katrina speaking. How can I help you?
But the Met Office's biggest customer base is the 64 million strong British public.
Good morning, Met Office. Kieran speaking. How can I help?
Hello, yes, I wonder if you can. I'm a very worried lady about the winds, and I've listened to the local weather. I wonder if you can tell me what weather is going to be like on Friday night and Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. That wouldn't be a problem at all. I'll just get Nottingham up for you now.
This is the weather desk, operating 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Anyone can call them to get a personalised forecast.
If you're going out to feed the ducks, it shouldn't cause a problem. 20 kilograms of birdseed and 14 loaves. They're not going to go hungry in Birmingham, that's for sure.
They have precise weather data for every city, town and village in the UK, and usually field about 300 calls a day. But with a severe event like a weather bomb on its way, they could take over 1,000.
All right then, thank you, bye-bye.
At the heart of the Met Office's forecasting operation is their £33 million supercomputer. Because all sorts of factors can affect how the weather behaves. And every day, the Exeter HQ receives millions of meteorological measurements from land, sea and air.
The data is worldwide. We have around 400 or so weather stations that are land-based just across the UK. But the relationship between the atmosphere and the ocean is really important. So we have transatlantic aircraft that will measure things as they fly around the place. You've got ocean buoys and drifters, which not only take information for the sea surface temperature, but some of them actually sink below the ocean surface. And it gives you an idea as to how complex the environment is and what kind of number crunching has to go on in order to create a forecast process.
The supercomputer has processing power equivalent to 100,000 home PCs, and it uses the measurements it receives to predict what might happen next.
They were able to forecast for the globe, right down to the small scale. For the Olympics, for example, 2012 Olympic Games, during the sailing events, we had a 300-metre resolution just to model the winds in Weymouth Bay.
However, computers can only do so much. It's down to the human touch of the Met Office's meteorologists to interpret how the weather will affect the country.
So 6 o'clock has the main heavy rain over northern France and the Channel Islands.
And right now, it looks like the weather bomb is about to unleash waves of increasingly bad weather across the northern parts of the UK.
When we're at our busiest, this is when it's also most stressful but also most enjoyable. There's a lot to look at. And what you can see at the moment is that there's quite a strong north to northwesterly wind down across the UK, and that's bringing in plenty of showers. And in fact, they're wintry showers. They're snow showers over the hills in the north.
The Met Office's focus isn't restricted to British weather. They're a major global forecasting force, with meteorologists working at 60 locations across the planet. From the Antarctic to Afghanistan, these on-site meteorologists live and work on the job. During his 30 years with the Met Office, Tony Baker has been embedded with the British military in 7 countries, including Iraq, Bosnia, as well as completing 5 tours of Afghanistan.
It's quite a variation. Obviously, places like Afghanistan and Iraq, you're looking at temperatures getting close to 45, 50 degrees Celsius, blowing wind, dust storms.
Today he's at the front line of the weather bomb, thanks to his latest posting to Transport Northern Ireland, based in Belfast.
Hey Tony, how's it going? It's going to be another tricky night tonight.
Tony's job is to keep the country's 4,000 miles of roads ice-free. It's no easy task, as it requires sending out over 100 gritters at exactly the right time.
I think our problem's going to be when to get the salt down this evening, you know. Now, I know your initial plan was to go out at about 1,600. At the moment, we're still looking at quite a few heavy showers across the north of the province, and that's heading down towards the Belfast area.
So obviously wash-off would be a concern for us.
Indeed.
Tony's forecasts predict an incoming mix of heavy rain and plummeting temperatures. It's a nightmare combination when you're trying to grit the roads.
They could go out and they could do a full salt run of the network, and then if we see a band of showers suddenly appear and come through, all that salt gets washed away, and I believe it's something like £80,000 every time they do a full salt run across the province. So there's a lot of money involved as well.
With thousands of taxpayers' money at stake, and more crucially, the safety of the public, Tony will be relying on up-to-the-minute weather intelligence from his colleagues at the Met Office's Open Roads Desk.
We've got showers basically on and off.
The open roads keep the meteorologists working on location one step ahead by using data from the very latest technology, including ice sensors built into many of our roads.
We're going to give guidance basically to the gritters. That's what these forecasts are. And they will do everything in their power to keep everything running. So if we can give them as much detail as possible, that gives them the best chance.
As afternoon progresses in Northern Ireland, the effects of the weather bomb close in.
The main concerns are, is it going to get cold enough for ice to form? And is there going to be moisture there for ice to form? And everything comes down to those.
Tony's going to need all his experience and the Met Office's latest intelligence to guide his crucial decision of when to send the gritters out.
It's a very delicate situation, very tricky to get it exactly right. Ultimately, you need to make sure that the roads are salted at the right time, otherwise people start having accidents and, anything can happen after that.
Using weather information to save money, and in some cases lives, is what the weather business is all about.
Last year, we forecast the first hot weekend of the year, well ahead of kind of media reports. And what that enabled our retailers to do was actually increase sales by 200% year on year. And because that first barbecue weekend was ahead of the kind of normal seasonal weather, they wouldn't have had that stock on their shelves if we hadn't have given them that advance warning.
With empty shelves costing the UK retail market £3 billion a year in lost sales, paying for bespoke forecasts can make the difference between profit and loss.
If we didn't get the weather forecast predicted right and react to it, then instead of seeing well-stocked shelves like this very, very quickly, you could have empty shelves and very disappointed customers.
In 2014, and for the first time on record, our spending on groceries fell. So now, more than ever, big supermarkets need to stay ahead of our buying patterns.
It's absolutely vital that we keep really close to what's happening to the weather. It is quite a complex supply chain when you're talking fresh food in particular, so we've got to make sure we give our supply base as much notice as possible for them to be able to prepare for that. So we've got to stay really, really close to it.
Sales of fresh produce aren't the only foods impacted by the weather. Britain might be in the middle of a December weather bomb, but at this ice cream factory in Gloucester, thousands of frozen treats are flying off the production line. Basing their planning on historic weather data, the company are stockpiling so they won't be caught out by a summer heat wave.
If we get a hot period in the summer, the amount of ice cream that we sell, we just simply cannot keep up. So we have to make so much ice cream during the winter months in readiness for the very hot weather. We can sell 5 weeks of demand in one day.
18 degrees is the so-called magic temperature that sees the public wanting to splash out on ice cream. But if temperatures hit the 25-degree mark, we ditch the dairy and feast on frozen lollies instead. At the other end of the spectrum, cold weather can be catastrophic for the country's coffers. Heavy snow on the 18th of January 2013 cost the economy £500 million, as a third of the workforce was stranded at home. The effects of the weather bomb, heavy wind and rain, are now being felt across the northern half of the UK. As night falls, there's no let-up for the Met Office staff, who are producing forecasts around the clock.
We're currently expecting fairly widespread gusts of between 60 and 70 miles an hour.
The weather desk is still inundated with calls from concerned citizens.
But no nasties.
We have got some rain coming in.
Oh dear.
And up in Belfast, constant rain and predicted freezing temperatures are poised to give the UK's biggest gritting team a massive headache.
It is a particularly difficult situation at the moment. The more factors that are involved, the more difficult the problems become.
Britain is being hit by the shockwaves of a weather bomb. At Met Office HQ in Exeter, phones at the weather desk are ringing off the hook.
Good morning, Met Office. Johnny speaking.
Is the wind supposed to pick up lunchtime?
I just had a call a minute ago. It was a lady who was worried about her nose blowing over.
Good afternoon, you're through to the Met Office.
They answer almost 200,000 weather inquiries from the public every year. Some coming from regular callers.
Good afternoon, welcome to the Met Office. Tim speaking, how may I help you?
Oh, hello, Tim.
88-year-old Chrissy has a phobia of storms, so calls in almost every day to make sure none are creeping close to her home in Devon.
Well, it's normally when I've heard an announcement that there could be a thunderstorm. And then I've got to know whereabouts it is. How far? Is it Cornwall or over by the Bristol Channel? I know the map as well as they do.
However, saying that, as we go towards this evening, towards 7 p.m, we have got some rain coming in.
But I can relax once I've rung the Met Office, and they always tell you the truth. I mean, if we're going to have a storm, they will say, in the nicest possible way, OK, Tim.
All right?
Yes, I'm all right.
Good,
yes.
good.
You all right?
Yes, fine, thank you very much.
We're all right then.
We are indeed, we are indeed.
Aside from offering us personalised forecasts, the Met Office plays a role in almost every aspect of British life. Our sporting institutions are particularly vulnerable to our fickle climate, so paying for weather data is a no-brainer, if it means being prepared. At Twickenham, an independent meteorologist advises the ground staff as England prepares for a major international against Australia.
All groundsmen live by the weather forecast. We work with the weather. You can't beat Mother Nature, you have to work with it. And that's the secret. If you know what's happening next, you can do something about it.
One of Keith's largest concerns is a downpour. It doesn't just wreak havoc on the game and soak supporters, it could leave sponsors seething.
We have logos on the pitch. If it shuts it down with rain, the logos are liable to wash out. So we have an additive that the producers of the paint add to it. So we'll sort of approach the weekend wondering how much additive to put in it, because obviously that dictates how well it washes out. So we have this balancing act of, one, keeping the logo in for the game, but then the race to get it off. It's good fun, but the weather forecast helps.
It ended up being a win-win for the Twickenham Stadium. The rain held off, the logos remained intact, and England won the match. With British sport worth some 20 billion a year to our economy, weather plays a key role across the board. Precise weather data is used at Old Trafford to decide exactly when to cut the grass for the perfect playing surface. And at Wimbledon, the Met Office supply an on-site meteorologist who analyses local weather and tells them when to close the roof on centre court. Back at the Met Office, an amber warning has been issued. This means be prepared as the effects of the weather bomb are about to spread south. Over at the aviation desk, more airports are being alerted.
Yeah, so we've got quite a deep area of low pressure out to the northwest of us. It's strengthening the winds even down into the southeast. So what we're going to be doing shortly is issuing a strong wind warning for airfields across the southeast.
This team is one of only 2 in the world providing high-level aviation weather information for the entire globe. But right now, all eyes are on Britain. Gale force winds are creating havoc on the seas, and the specialist flood forecasting desk is now having to keep a watchful eye.
Interesting times. This colour here shows the significant waves that we've got coming in. So you can see up in Scotland and Northern Ireland, these waves here, you can see the 17-metre waves.
17-metre waves have the power to cause considerable damage to property and life.
As it comes into onshore here, we've got 2, 3, 4-metre waves. So much, much lower as they're coming in onto the coast down here. But it's more, the emphasis is really on the weather at the moment. That's what the amber's about. It's the winds bringing in some really nasty waves. We just want to be careful that there's no risk for life. That's what the messaging's about at the moment, rather than about inshore flood risk.
On the ground in Northern Ireland, they're in the thick of it.
The sea has come right in and flooded all this bit up. As I say, normally children are sitting there all summer.
With freezing sleet and gale-force winds added to the mix, Northern Ireland's 4,000-mile road network is under threat. For Tony Baker, the weather bomb's causing him real concern. Time is running out. He needs to make a decision on when to send out the gritters. And with each run costing tens of thousands of pounds, timing it right is crucial.
The air is so cold already that as soon as we get any kind of breaks in the cloud, the temperature will drop quite quickly. The other thing we're looking at is a little low pressure system that's developing down to the southwest of Ireland. On the leading edge of that, where the air is coldest, we're likely to see that falling as sleet and wet snow. So we have to track it, keep an eye on the tracking of that very closely and see how it develops through the course of this evening. It is a particularly difficult situation at the moment. Most of the time you're looking at 1 or 2 factors, but tonight you're looking at 3 or 4. The more factors that are involved, the more difficult the problems become.
It's 8 p.m, and for the gritting team at the depot, it's a frustrating night. They wanted to get started 4 hours ago, but until Tony gives them the green light, they're grounded.
We would love to just be able to come in on a dry night, a dry, cold, frosty night. You come in, you nearly know what time you're going to start at, and you nearly have a fair idea what time you're going to finish at. But in a situation like this, you go out and you're never too sure of actually what's going to happen.
Tony continues working hand in hand with the Open Roads team back at the Met Office. They feed in vital data from a thermal map of the roads network. This gives Tony the road temperature and, crucially, an indication of when the roads are likely to freeze. It's now just after midnight, and as the rain passes, Tony finally gives the word to get gritty. Will his timing be right?
I guess the worst kind of scenario for Transport NI is that they could end up doing 2 or 3 salt runs tonight. And if you think that a whole salt run is £80,000, you know, that's a lot of money to spend in one night.
As morning breaks in Northern Ireland, the traffic is flowing. Back at the Met Office, they're able to see if Tony's decision was the right one.
It's not looking too bad in Northern Ireland today. Their roads are effectively free of ice and snow hazards.
The biggest misconception about the Met Office, I think, is that people think we always get the forecast wrong, and it simply isn't true.
As the effects of the weather bomb move away from the country as quickly as they came in, attention at the Met Office turns to the next weather system set to keep them on their toes.
The weather always changes and it's always moving on.
Some people are already asking, is it going to snow for Christmas in Exeter?
So what we're always doing is looking for the next bit of weather that's going to come along, because that's what we're here for.
The weather never sleeps, and over in Exmouth, the Met Office's most loyal customer is phoning in again for her very own bespoke forecast.
Good afternoon, welcome to the Met Office. Tim speaking, how may I help you?
Hello, Tim.
Next time, hurricane-force winds are forecast to lash the UK.
I've never done a hurricane before, and it is quite exciting.
Extreme weather threatens even the most experienced emergency services.
We really need to get as low as we can and reduce the effect the wind has on the helicopter.
And the Met Office are tested to the limit as they try to keep Britain safe.
Whoa.